Get me with me. I pull up and
What's up, Goblin Nation? It's Jibrian, and welcome back to the Goblin Show. Happy to see you here. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know by now that Rell Movie 2 is released and everyone is covering it. Whether you watched it live or are finding out for the first time, I'm going to be doing a step-by-step recap to make sure you don't miss anything. Before we get into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want to share your suggestions, join the Discord in the description, and if you want to join our fleet, there's a server for that too. Anyways, now that that's out of the way, buckle in because delicious times are ahead of you. The first thing we should get out of the way is this intro. They used an AI of Butcher from The Boys, which I thought was pretty cringe, but you know, if you're into the show, maybe you like it. Anyways, they basically just introduce it and then give the release date, which is in December.
December for the public, closed community early October.
Now, something I want to mention, since a lot of people don't even know what closed community is, it's basically another version of the game that is like way more role play, and there's like one of each devil fruit, for example, so you probably won't get the one you want, and not everyone can make a crew. You need permission. So it's got like more rules and stuff, but it's like you kind of get to know people more because it's like the same people playing, if that makes sense. The closed community version of the game will not interact with the normal game, so it doesn't matter if your progress saves because it's like different servers. Think of it as a different game entirely. So you start the game by getting a cool little cutscene and then a bit of a tutorial where you have to break out of a cell. This is obviously to introduce a bunch of mechanics to you and show you how the game is played. They have said that this tutorial is optional, so you can skip it, which is really nice because they have 3 save slots so you can make other characters and not have to redo this whole thing. So a couple things I noticed right away is you can see the parrot there. Its name is Jack Sparrett. Now this is probably going to be Jack C. Sparrow, the character they introduced like forever ago. If it's not, then they just got really lazy with names. If you're wondering how he became a parrot, we don't really know. He just says his soul is stuck inside the parrot.
I'm Jack Sparrett. My soul is stuck inside this bird, but anywho.
Another thing, you can see the stealth takedown he does here actually has like a small cutscene that plays, which is pretty cool. It's similar to like a finisher. Boy, did he finish her. He does a bit of parkour here that actually looks really good. It's nice to finally see it used on the actual map and not just like walls in the middle of the desert. So here he enters a quick boss fight as a little bit of a tutorial boss. This kind of gets me curious as to how many cutscenes we're going to get in the actual game. Like every island going to have a couple cutscenes. Also, another thing I'd like to note is that the way the parrot is following him kind of reminds me of the way another similar game would have like a pet system. So hopefully we can buy parrots or other kinds of birds at least. At the very least, it seems like the AI is already done, so it would be less work for them. Something interesting with this fight is that he actually gets the boss down all the way to no health and then still has to do a finisher. While we still don't know how boss drops work, I'm wondering if whoever gets the finisher might be the one that gets a drop, or if it's similar to Shinobi Life where you guys have to fight over it. Also, this is me to people who watch my video and don't subscribe. Now, something that's kind of weird is that immediately after he fights this boss, he goes to that green light and then fights another boss, which feels a little weird. Like, why would they put 2 tutorial bosses? After he beats the boss, he does another little finisher. What I think is interesting about this finisher is that he pulls out a knife that isn't his weapon, so it seems like the finishers themselves will sometimes give you weapons, which is cool because I could imagine some really creative ones that would be fun. Just imagine there's like a boss out there that when you beat him, the finisher just makes you pull out a baseball bat or something. And by give you a weapon, I mean during the cutscene. I don't think it actually gives you a knife that you can keep, because I know someone's already commenting that. After he beats the boss, he goes to open the gate and then it cuts to him on the boat. I'm guessing there was a bit where he got on the boat. I don't know if it just teleports you onto the boat. That'd be kind of weird. But if you were quick, you notice this little screenshot I took here. It only showed this for about 4 frames and this is the brightest one I could get, but it looks like that's a character customization. If you look in the middle there on the left, you can see eyes, which I think means he was customizing his eyes, which I think because of the way it immediately loads onto the boat, I think you can just customize your appearance at any point in the game by pausing. It's either that or when you hit customize in the main menu, when you hit finish, you just end up being on the boat like in game, which is kind of cool as well. Now, I'm not the one who figured this out, so shout out to Squid in the Discord who found this little detail. If you see at some point here, you can see that there's a command in the top left to give one of the users Rokushiki. You can see he uses the same move from teaser 2 way back, but it has improved like visuals, so it looks a lot better. So here we get a little bit of a teaser for what the Hades Asylum is going to be like. It actually has a functional elevator, which is pretty cool, and high level marines can actually operate it. They say that this is true both in CC and the RPG, and I'm wondering if RPG just means a regular game, because I don't know what else it would be since CC is like the other version. So they say that each floor is its own instance, and I'm wondering if we're just going to like load into another server. I didn't really think think that's how it was going to work before because it seemed kind of complicated loading constantly. And I wonder if you'll be able to like join your friends there, you know what I mean? Especially since they said that you can like save your friends who are trapped. I'm wondering how this is going to work. Like, are they just expecting you to be friends and then it'll load you into the same session because you're friends? Or is it going to be some kind of like, it can tell when you're in a crew with someone and it'll like put you into their world because of it? Overall, this prison system seems way bigger than I thought it was going to be. I know they had mentioned before that it was like open world down there and, you know, each had like its own biome, but they're talking about like puzzles and like different instances. So it seems like there's a lot of depth to it. A really cool thing they mention here is that Marines can capture and like release prisoners that are NPCs. So it's not just like PvP, you can also do PvE Marine stuff, which I didn't really expect because I guess I didn't really know what it would be, you know? It's nice that they get their own little side progression, you know, request route. Next, they show up some cool little map teasers for maps they're working on or, you know, are finishing. Let me know how many of these you guys recognized in the comments below. Oh, and a big thing here is they mentioned the Rowati is a restaurant, a boat, and a trading ground from top to bottom. Now, I don't know if the boat actually moves around. It'd be really cool if it like traveled around the whole world, especially because otherwise it's basically an island. But the fact that it's a trading ground is kind of interesting because it means they're trying to push it as some type of hub where people can meet up. Here they mention that all their maps have fully built interiors that you can explore, and there's something called an adventure dex, which, you know, I guess will catalog islands you've been to and secrets you found, which is pretty cool. I really like it when there's like a log that you can fill out by doing things or, you know, collecting things. I think it's very satisfying to see it all get checked off. Maybe there's like titles you can unlock. That's always a cool mechanic. Oh, and this is really cool too because they took the Rowati and they didn't just make one, they made another one that's actually flying, which is pretty cool. Now this one they say is north of Rell Heavens, which is their version of Skypiea. So I'm guessing this one doesn't move. It'd be cool if it did. Maybe it just has a like stops if they do more floating islands. Could always add that at some point, I think. Okay, something really cool to note here is you can see the adventure deck in action, and it actually looks like you need to find all the clues before you can even find out what the town is called. So that's like a really cool detail as well. Also, you can see that instead of calling it the East Blue, it's called East Cobalt Sea, meaning there's probably going to be every sea from One Piece, which is really cool as well. I think something that makes this really cool for a Roblox game is that they can just keep updating it and adding like a new sea with each update, just so there's always content. So everyone's been talking about the hockey sneaks in this movie, but I think this might be one of the biggest reveals because we already knew hockey was going to be a thing, so it's more about just how they do it. But this reveal is actually crazy. There's 40 in-game factions and each one has like bosses and lore. And then however you complete events, because I'm guessing some events will have multiple ways to beat it, will contribute to your faction. And then you can unlock perks from each faction. I'm guessing there will be clothing too. It just makes sense, especially with all the lore they're adding. I think some people are imagining like a you know, you join the faction and then level them up. I think it doesn't really work that way. The way I see it, the way they explain it, I imagine it's going to be more like you go to this event and then that'll up your reputation with them because you helped them out. So it's more about like staying in the right areas, doing the right events, that kind of thing. Something I really liked is that they talk about how they've been mass producing events and different types of events that you can participate in. I think this is probably the best thing they could focus on because events are what make the world feel alive and it's going to make the game feel different every time you play it. I'll be doing a full video going over the events, my thoughts on them, and which I think will be the most fun, so stay tuned for that and subscribe so you see that one. They show off a bit of the controls for the submarine. It has a battle mode, which is kind of interesting, and it has a built-in sonar as well. I'm kind of hoping these are upgrades you can get, so submarines aren't all just the same. But, you know, it's really cool either way. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you already know one of my favorite features that Rell Seas is going to have is, you know, all the talents like woodcutting, mining, and all that. And it's nice to see they're not getting left behind because there's also a fishing dex and a cooking dex, which will collect all the recipes and all the fish you've discovered. Oh, and how can I forget the crafting decks too. Now, they spend a really long time talking about this. They reworked fishing's mechanics so they play a little differently. This is the kind of thing that's more interesting if you've already done it, so it's not really that cool to like watch them struggle for like 5 minutes. And this was a long segment, trust me. One of the more interesting things is that they mentioned that the difficulty of fishing is sorted into tiers, and here he shows off a tier 4, which is the hardest one. Also take note in the top right, it says that Rell Sin is a civilian, so it doesn't look like you get forced into either role at all at any point. Maybe you can just stay a civilian forever. And here they spend a long time talking about the changes they made to combat mechanics. This is, like I said with fishing, one of those things where I think is more interesting if you've actually played the game. The one thing to note is that they made it so that your M1s, you know, your melee attacks, aren't like, they don't have keyframe locks, so you can basically attack as fast as you click. Obviously, you can't just spam the click to attack super quick, but you can like slow down your attacks to make it more fluid, you know, that kind of thing. Now, this might also be one of the coolest things in this entire movie. So at first I was hoping they would do sword styles, that way you could kind of use whatever sword you wanted. They actually did it one better. Instead of coming up with styles, you can take the skill from one sword and use it on a different sword. So you can create your own sword style. This is incredibly cool. I can't even lie. I think this is probably the most underrated reveal, because a lot of people are talking about factions and hockey, but building your own sword style is like every swordsman dream. Because then you're just constantly looking for new weapons and then, you know, finding new moves on each weapon. So it's like no weapon is useless because any of them could have a move you want. This means you can basically just pick any weapon you want for its aesthetic or the way it looks, and then just like change the moves to fit your playstyle. Another cool system that they showed off is the poster system, where you can pick these posters, which kind of work like perks, where you're able to like select ones that match your playstyle, and you get them from different sources like bosses or like the adventure decks, that sort of thing. Another cool thing is that they also have these poster systems for like hockey, so you can get the 3 different types of hockey, and each one will have different perk cards that you can use. The next thing they do is show off what it's going to be like to fight a giant boss, and this is mostly just to show off the perk cards and how you might want to change them for bosses. I think for this one he made the dodges better so you can avoid attacks, that kind of thing. Something that would make this system perfect is like a loadout system where you can swap, like maybe have a boss loadout and have a PvP loadout. I think it'd make it a lot cleaner swapping between them, so you don't have to find the perks each time. Or maybe at least like let me favorite them, you know, so they're at the top. You can infuse your hockey into weapons. I don't think anyone is really doubting this, but we finally have confirmation there on screen. You can see his red blade. Okay, so everyone's excited for hockey, and one thing you should note immediately is that it has its own stat point distribution. So they mentioned that you don't start with spiritual, you have to unlock it as a type of progression, and then you can see the 3 types: armament, observation, and conquer. It looks like you have to specialize, so you can't become a master at all of them. Unless there's no stat cap, but I can't imagine they would do that for balancing reasons. Also, this is 100% the coolest hockey customization we've ever seen in a One Piece game. You can change where on your body it is, you can change the pattern, you can even change the color. So a cool thing they do with the talent cards, or I guess the posters, is that they made the observation perks all be from geniuses like scientists and all that. The conqueror ones, obviously, it's conquerors like Genghis Khan, and then the armament is like based on famous knights. So these posters seem to completely change the way your abilities work. Like one of them, like the Godzilla one there, I guess he was a conqueror. This one disables mode, so if you hit a Zoan with it, they'll turn back into a person. Honestly, my favorite thing about that isn't that it knocks them out or, you know, makes them not a Zoan. It's the fact that it's like aimed like a projectile. I don't know why every One Piece game does it like an AoE. I know it is an AoE sometimes, but it's kind of cool to be able to aim it like that, because in the show they can control it to knock out only certain people. They show off some more pretty cool hockey changes, you know, depending on what cards you have. One of them makes it so instead of dodging, you'll do like a counter. There's another one, so the third melee in your combo will actually be like a super strong punch that sends them flying. This one looks really cool. There's a couple more, but that's about it for hockey. That's about it for the movie, actually. If you want to see a deep dive on hockey and some of the other stuff, subscribe, because I will be going way more into depth on each individual topic in their own video. This has been a mostly quick overview to save you guys from having to watch the full hour long. I still went into depth on some things, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to subscribe. I mean, I keep saying it, but you know, it is kind of important to YouTubers. I don't know if you knew that. Love you guys, and see you next time.
Like you all shed tears, like, didn't you